They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! With 0.6 of a second remaining.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the Outlet Pass Podcast. I am your resident JT McConnell, the homie's homie. More importantly, my real name, Justin DiVirgilio, and on the line with me for episode 34 of the Outlet Pass Podcast, my friend and fellow Sixer Sense writer, Joey DiProsperos. How you doing, Joey?
My guy, how you been? It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. You have gone to school. I have restarted the podcast after a brief hiatus after you were the last person on it. But it's been going good. I'm happy to be doing another one of these podcasts, episode 34, the Shaq episode.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm live from my dorm room right now. Hopefully my roommate does not walk in on me right now.
You make it sound like it's a bad thing that you be on the phone, just him walking in like, you know, something else you wouldn't want to be walked in on.
That's for another episode.
It's definitely for another episode. I don't know why I said it's the Shaq episode, because Shaq is in the middle of a rap beef. Have you paid attention at all? Only a little bit at least?
I have paid attention to it, and Dame is killing him right now. I don't know why Shaq even made another response.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, real quick, I want to tell you, I didn't get to tell Rob Young of Sixer Saturdays this, but has anybody ever told you two that you speak kind of similar, like you sound alike?
Yeah, that's that Delco blood right there. He's the pride of Drexel Hill. I'm from the media area, so it runs in our blood, man.
Okay, because I thought it afterwards. I was like, I didn't get to tell him that, but I could tell. It's not hard. It's very noticeable.
Yeah, the difference between South Philly and Delco is very distinct to me, if you ask.
Yeah, I think you'll get that from both sides. You could do a poll, and I think both sides would equally answer passionately.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man.
Now, real quick, before we talk about the topics, I just want to remind everybody where you can follow myself and the podcast at _J DiVirgilio on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at the Outlet Pass Podcast, and on Twitter at @pass_podcast. Then you could like, subscribe, rate, review, 5 stars, follow, tell a friend on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Just search the Outlet Pass Podcast on all 4 of those platforms. Joey, would you like to plug at the top of the show as well?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JoeyD_6, capital J and capital D. Same thing on Instagram, minus the uppercases. And yeah, if you want to see some bad tweets, just follow me.
Never heard somebody down their tweets like that. People
my Twitter game is terrible.
I think, yeah, it might be average, you know.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, it's a tough time if you're not really into the football and all that, and baseball postseason, NBA preseason. You got to be armed with the hot takes. Also, you can check out myself and Joey's writing on the SixerSense.com. The whole team, we're getting ready to cover and debate and talk about an interesting and exciting upcoming Sixers season. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, zone error there. This is the part of the year that we really live for. We're going to be dishing out so much content over the course of the year, and I don't think you guys are going to want to miss out on it. Well said. Now let's get to our Sixers. Training camp ended last Friday, right before the blue and white scrimmage. I was watching every post-practice interview with Joel Embiid, Brett Brown, Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Al Horford, just you name it, Tobias Harris, everyone was sounding excited and somewhat giddy and focused to play with a foundation such as the one created with the Sixers. And the blue and white scrimmage happened as well. It's not something to measure upon so deeply, but first off, I was excited to just see the blue and white scrimmage, see them play against each other and just play meaningful-ish basketball before meaningful-ish preseason games. How do you feel, Joey?
Yeah, it just feels good to see our first glimpse of how this team is going to look, even though it is technically just a glorified inter squad. But I think the squad is going to be pretty good this year. I don't know about you, man, but they don't look too shabby, man.
I think, yeah, I mean, I said my prediction on Sixer Saturdays podcast. I believe that they will be at the top of the East as they were close to being last year. In the blue and white scrimmage particularly, it's nice to see a first-round pick that the Sixers have that isn't a slam dunk prove people that he is an NBA player. And I'm talking about Matisse Thybulle. This guy was all over the place, recovering defensively very quickly, using his length and his instincts defensively to knock balls away, to disrupt guys. Ben Simmons even said it the other day when asked about him. He hates him on defense. And I love to hear that because other guys of Ben Simmons' caliber are going to probably feel the same sentiment.
Yes. So prior to the draft, I had the opportunity to profile Matisse. And the more film you watch him, I mean, I've never seen a guy have glorified defensive highlights. I never enjoyed watching defensive highlights before watching his. You could see he was oozing athleticism, defensive instincts, especially off the ball. The hands were everywhere. He had so many tips. It was insane. And so obviously when Elton traded up to get him, I was pretty excited about what he was going to bring to the table to this team. I know a lot of people were upset about the price that was paid to go up and get him, but I still thought it was going to be worth it no matter what. And obviously over the course of training camp, he got a large amount of praise from pretty much everybody on the team for his instincts, his off-ball defense, his active hands, and just being an overall pest on the defensive end. And, man, was that on display in the blue and white scrimmage. I mean, there was a stretch where he had at least 3 or 4 possessions where he just blew it up. We either got a tip, stole the ball, or just managed to get a stop. Obviously, his best play of that game was when he was going for the loose ball. He was on the floor. He was on pretty much past the half-court line, I think. And Josh Richardson was pulling up for a 3, and Matisse comes out of nowhere and swats it away. Got a pretty nice ovation from the Sixers faithful that were at that game. And then, of course, at the end of the game, Ben said that he absolutely hates him on defense. And I'm so excited to see what he can bring to the bench unit as far as defense goes.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's great as well that in training camp, interviews, as I stated, but from Thybulle, an interview where one reporter asked about his role within the offense, and it reassures me that he knows that his role isn't too complicated. He is basically to be a 3-and-D guy, which is great. If you have someone who is young, 22 years old is young, but being drafted at 22, it was looked kind of down upon as a first-round pick because that's not usually how it goes in recent memory. It's nice to hear that he's ready to step into that role immediately because he's comfortable within it, and then knowing that he could still learn and grow throughout the season within that specific role. I'm glad that he is already focused and knows his task to help the team as much as he can, given whatever opportunity he will. How many minutes do you think Thibel's going to get throughout this season?
Probably around 20-ish. It's going to be such a clogged lineup. And obviously, Brett's going to be favoring the elder statesmen and Mike Scott and James Ennis. So he's still going to have to fight for extended minutes over the course of the year, but I still expect him to be a top option off the bench.
Yeah, so, like, in the first 3 guys that come in? Or first 4?
I think he'll be at the very least in the first 4.
All right. I'm comfortable with that. Any other standouts for you from the blue-white scrimmage?
So surprisingly, Furkan actually didn't look too bad. I mean, I still don't expect him to get a large amount of playing time over the course of the year, and I still have questions about his overall ability. But he looked like he added some tricks. He looked good handling the ball. He made some shots. He didn't look that incompetent overall over the course of that game.
Yeah, Furkan was serviceable. I think he's just more motivated to get the next contract, even if it's not here. That's probably where that comes from. For one person that stood out to me a little bit is Trey Burke. He showed a little shimmy and shake off the dribble and creating, which is something that the Sixers haven't had in a point guard in quite some time. I'm excited to see it. I don't know how much that'll last because of how much Brett Brown will have to play with the lineup, but knowing that is there is a luxury and beneficial.
Yeah, and going on about Burke. So he was pitted against Raul Nato.
Wait,
and
what?
Throughout the, that's pretty sure that's how you say it. That's how they've been saying it throughout, media availability. But
so the new Saric.
Yes, pretty much.
All right.
So Nato was pitted against Burke for most of the game, and Nato Hunt was pounding him pretty well one-on-one, staying with him on defense. And if you ask me, I think Nato's probably going to get the nod for the backup point guard role over Burke. Nothing against Burke, but I just feel that Nato is just more solid overall on both ends of the floor. But they're probably going to get even minutes earlier in the season, just almost another competition, kind of like what happened with Jonathan Simmons versus James Ennis last year. But I wouldn't be opposed to them sort of interchanging depending on who their opponent is, who gets the more minutes. Like if they're going against a team that has more dynamic point guard options off the bench, you can go with Nato. But if you need that offensive boost and you need a spark in the middle of the game, then you go with Burke. But I think Nato's going to get the nod over Burke for backup point guard minutes.
Interesting. I don't know who I don't know who I believe will be getting them early on. Like you said, it's going to be a competition. I am siding more with Trey Burke, maybe because of seeing more of him and knowing Trey Burke. So I'll stick with Trey Burke, but whoever produces more, I'm fine with producing as the backup point guard. It doesn't matter who it is to me at this point. One last thing from the scrimmage. I didn't like the amount of turnovers from the blue squad, the starters. They were turning the ball over a lot, especially in the first quarter. I believe there were 3. And that's something that will be fixed. And it's not a legitimate concern, especially in a scrimmage. But if that appears at any point during the season, it's not good, especially during playoff basketball, which is ultimately what is in the back of my head. I would think a lot of other fans' heads. You cannot turn the ball over in a half-court offense. It minimizes your opportunities.
Yeah, I think that was to be expected a little bit. They're still trying to, figure each other out and see what works and what doesn't. But I'll tell you, so the one thing that I really liked from the Blue Squad, the defense pretty much looked as advertised in that scrimmage. They were rotating well. They were active. They were disrupting passes, getting into passing lanes and all that. I think that was very promising early on so far.
All right. Now, just you have any other Sixers talk? Who is your most anticipated player for this season?
Zaire Smith by far. Depending on his development, I think that there's a real chance that he could end up being one of the top guys off the bench over the course of the year. Just his ability to defend guys man on man. Guys have been raving about his shooting lately in training camp. And I just think he's such a dynamic guy that could end up being very useful for this team down the stretch.
All right. Hopefully I get to see him play. Well, we all get to see him play a lot tonight as the Sixers take on the Sharks of China. I'm not even going to try and say the beginning first names of the city. I don't even know. It starts with a G. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the team from China, yeah.
The team from China. We don't want to get in any other trouble with China here in America by mispronouncing their names. Yeah, I'm going to the preseason game tonight. I have pretty decent seats, so it's going to be fun watching the boys for the first time in 2019 in live action.
Over-under, the team that they're facing scores under 70, or 70.
I'm going to go over. Yeah, just barely, but I'll go over.
I'll take the over too. Yeah, barely over. I'm just like to see how this defense looks in game action.
Me too. Let's go to James Harden, a player who is controversial because with his one-on-one ability, we are not able to determine what a travel is anymore. In a sideline interview after a practice in Houston, they were asking about the new traveling rules of the NBA. Joey, are you familiar with the new traveling rules of the NBA?
Yes. Should we explain what the new traveling rule is?
Yes, sir.
So, the rule is basically focused on what a gather is, essentially. Apparently, they released a video not too long, a week or two ago, showing what is a travel nowadays. But they deemed a gather to be whenever a player stops the dribble with the first step at the end of the dribble starting the count. So that's basically all they've adjusted as far as that goes.
And it's not the biggest adjustment. It doesn't sound like it is. It just sounds like that rule needed flushing out and complete clarification.
Yeah, it was just, I think it was essentially trying to eliminate that gray area.
Yeah, definitely. Now, James Harden said when addressing those rules, and those are specifically directed at him and people emulating James Harden's moves, is that he is changing the game. He is a creator, in his words. That's what they do. Just because you don't understand it or it looks different doesn't mean it's against the rules. I thought that was an interesting stance because I was thinking about it, and only the one thing, like I joked earlier saying, when he said, I'm a creator, man, it sounds like he would be wearing a leather jacket with some capri pants and a shiny scarf and some odd-looking sunglasses that are designer. They have to be. When he said that at Coachella. That's what it sounds like. But if I didn't know it was James Harden. But since it's James Harden, and in seriousness, he is a creator. He created a bunch of different moves that are legal that we didn't even see 3 years ago. So I will commend him on that.
Yeah, it does come off as a little pretentious when you say something like that. But how would you feel if you pretty much force the NBA to reevaluate the rule book? It must be a very empowering feeling to have. But yeah, I've never made a big deal out of what he does when he has the ball in his hands. I just see the stats and what he does on a court. But yeah, and plus it was never a travel. It was never a travel, and it's just the NBA just decided to make a big deal out of it.
It looked like one, or maybe the perception of someone who didn't understand the rules or never did a move like that made us think it was a travel. It certainly made me question it because the question was posed. So I thought, is that a travel? I watched it, whatever move it may be, multiple times. It just made you think it was, although it's not. I like that he came back this season. It really highlights the incredible amount of work he's put in, because that takes a lot of footwork and balance.
It's also a testament to just his physical ability to create separation, to get off a shot like that. There aren't a lot of people in the league that can, do something like that at a consistent level.
Nah, definitely not. He's the only one. I think, is James Harden in the pantheon of legends that have changed basketball in the past, since the NBA and ABA merged? So that was that 1973?
Yeah.
Sounds very assuring, but we'll go with that. In the 70s, definitely, is when the ABA and NBA merged. Where does
76.
76. All right. Where does he rank amongst the guys in the pantheon of changing the game? So people like Wilt Chamberlain, people like... Oh, no, I said since 76. So we'll go with Dr. J. We'll start with him. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, even Hakeem, you could say, Tracy McGrady, Kobe, LeBron, Steph, James Harden. Am I missing anybody? AI?
Could you? I'm
Shaq?
I'm more so thinking about guys that force people to reevaluate how they go about style of play. We were talking about it before we started recording about, Harden and Steph being on the same level as far as, changing the way we view the game and how you go about playing it. Yeah,
it's two different things. Both involve jump shooting, which is interesting that an evolution in jump shooting has taken the game in different directions instead of just God-given ability with athletes. Because a bunch of guys I just named, like everyone can't be as tall as Kareem, or as skilled as Dr. J, or as athletic as Michael Jordan or LeBron or Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. Like, those guys have tons of skill and had tons of skill, but also they were built into a bigger body. James Harden is 6'3", 220, and it's literally all based on his prowess with the basketball, how good he is one-on-one. And we should have seen this coming since Kobe. It's funny how those stories come out like years and years later on social media, is that he saw James Harden, I think, practice with the Team USA team, and he basically anointed him. He said that you got to watch out for him. He's the next one.
And I think a lot of people knew that. If you watched him in OKC, you knew that he was special. He was a special offensive talent, and it really just took off once he went to Houston and had his own team to lead and showcase his abilities.
How much does him changing the game affect his team this season? Like bringing the new one-legged three and the wrap it behind my back sidestep three, or the sidestep to the left three, which he really likes to step to the right. How does it affect everyone else on his team this year? Does it allow them to get better looks because people will be flying at Harden, or one person will and he could possibly make a pass? Because he is a good passer on top of being an absolute savant one-on-one. So
I'm curious to find out myself. I really don't know how that's going to work, being that he's also going to be with another ball dominant guard and Russ. So I'm curious to see how they try to work out that dynamic. How do you merge two very, very ball dominant guards into, creating a repeatable system?
Maybe by Russ making more back cuts or just slashing, and he chased rebounds in Oklahoma City for necessity, And maybe he needs to do the same thing on the offensive glass because he's one of the most ferocious guard rebounders probably of all time at this point. He's been in the league, 9-10 years now?
This is going to be his 12th season.
Wow. That's so shocking to think about that we watched a bunch of these great players to now where they're at, and they're still in their primes or ending in their primes.
There's a case to be made that Russ is a little bit on the decline. His athleticism is down a little bit. His explosiveness is down. I know that his ability to finish drives took a bit of a dip the last year or two, but he's still an insanely productive player. If he can actually shoot the ball, though, is another question.
It's great you mentioned that because Russell Westbrook, with a minimum of 2,500 attempts from three-point land, has the worst three-point percentage in NBA history. The list reads the top 5. Russell Westbrook, Jerry Stackhouse, Allen Iverson, Gary Payton, Clyde Drexler. Now, they all hover around 30.8% to 33%. It's not great. And I don't think Russ is going to be doing a ton of three-point shooting from passes from Harden or anyone else, unless it is the best shot of that possession.
And there's no guarantee he makes it.
No, definitely not, but I think he knows the game enough that he would have to take that shot instead of trying to create something else that would, why would you pass up something that was created for you to create something maybe more difficult? Because I just think that would be counterproductive.
No, and I agree. I mean, we don't. They can't have him, chucking up those mid rangers early in the shot clock. But he needs to show that he can at least be a somewhat reliable shooter this season if they're going to want to, make it far in a loaded Western Conference.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Let's move on because James Harden is changing the game. And actually, one last thing. Where does this lead everyone else? Because at one point, I believe there was a quote. I remember hearing this that he says, "Your favorite player is going to be doing what he's doing." How much does James Harden increasing his repertoire offensively affect other players that may want to include similar things because they see that it works so well?
I don't know. I mean, obviously LeBron has tried to implement that step back three into his game a few times. But I mean, who do you think has the best chance of trying to, implement a one-legged, sidestep three into their game? Who else is really going to try to do that? Not
even one-legged. I'm actually more astonished with the step back to the left to his shooting side when he looks like he's ready to hesitate and he just steps to the side to get an opening to shoot. It's more subtle, and you have to have the right balance and timing. I'm trying to think of candidates in my head of up-and-coming guard because I don't want to throw in another elite player like Steph Curry would. I could see him doing it if he wanted to, right?
Yeah, but who has the combination of physicality and footwork that Harden has? There aren't a lot of people.
I could see he doesn't have the same amount of physicality, and not to the same extent. Maybe just trying something similar. Because I hate when people I'm saying not to the same extent of James Harden. Obviously, no one's going to do that, right? But I could see someone like Buddy Hield trying something similar, unless he just sticks with his game that has worked up to this point. I don't know. That's the first person that popped in my mind. Bradley Beal?
I just don't think there's anybody that could really do it like him.
Yeah, not exactly like him, but yeah, I'm trying to make that a point. Not exactly like him, because no one's going to do it exactly like him. Maybe
no one.
Maybe 6 years from now, when there is a kid who's 12 right now, studying James Harden because that's his favorite player. But yeah, I guess those are two good names to throw out there, the ones that I threw out there. But I don't know. It's difficult, and there's a reason why it's only him. Like,
there's only one James Harden, man. As much of a cliche as that sounds, there's only one of him.
I'm super ready for all of the new moves in this season. I'm ready to see how defenders attack it. With his new moves, how much do his free throw attempts increase?
I don't know if they can get as high as they were last year. That was an insane rate that he was shooting free throws at. I'm gonna get up the number real quick that he was shooting them at.
Because James Harden was drawing fouls, like you said, at a great rate last year. Now I would think new moves that players haven't really played against think that they have an angle on Harden and they lunge in to block the shot, and then they only clip his side where he can get the shot off still, and it's a shooting foul.
So he averaged 11 free throw attempts per game last year, and he shot them at a 88% clip. Do you think? I don't know if it's possible to eclipse, shooting 11 free throws a game, this coming year.
Yeah,
that's an insane rate to shoot him at.
That's difficult because some of his scoring will be sliced a little bit, thinking about playing with Russell Westbrook and Eric Gordon and P.J. Tucker and Clint Capella. He shares the ball enough because he averaged 37 points last year, right? Or something like that.
36, yeah.
36 points a game. Yeah, that's wild.
He's not going to average 36 a game. Now he might average 30 a game again, but there's no way he breaks those insane offensive numbers that he had this past year.
I would love for him to, just as a fan.
Oh, me too.
All right. Let's talk more about the Rockets, just because it's been sweeping your cell phone, social media, and all that. Daryl Morey versus China. He tweeted that he stands with Hong Kong in their fight for democracy and basic human rights, is what I understand. Am I wrong, Joey? You read it up on yesterday. We had a nice little text exchange about it. Can you tell me more and the listeners more?
So my very general, basic understanding of what's going on in Hong Kong is there is this extradition rule that's been introduced that allows people to be extradited back to China for crimes, and it's being viewed as authoritative, and it could potentially be harmful to critics of the regime over there. I mean, again, a lot of this goes way over my head, and for us here, being in a democracy, we see the people that are protesting as being pro-democracy, fighting for freedom, and fighting against potential oppression. But yet state media over in China portrays them as being violent, just anti-China, all of this kind of stuff. And so when Daryl Morey tweets out something like this, supporting the Hong Kong protesters, it normally would seem like the right thing to do. Oh, he's on the right side. But being that the NBA has all these business interests in China and they don't want to upset, the Chinese government, basically, they have to apologize for this and reprimand Daryl Morey because he could potentially hurt those connections over there in China. And now they're trying to make this very hypocritical damage control campaign, trying to reel back on what Daryl Morey said. And overall, the NBA comes off as very, very hypocritical, being that we're in this era now where NBA athletes are being encouraged more than ever to speak out on societal issues that they care deeply about. So when you analyze it every aspect of this thing, it's very, very complicated and very, very, very hypocritical on behalf of the NBA.
Yeah, in a time, like you said, that they're encouraged more to talk about social issues that they care about. Now, Daryl Morey cares about this one. The other ones that Donald, Chris Paul, other players, etc., have talked about the I Can't Breathe t-shirts, Trayvon Martin, Donald Sterling, I'm More Than an Athlete, are just some examples of that, which are causes that they should be highlighted, but they're not. They're more short-sighted than what this specific thing is, because the NBA is supported heavily by China. America is supported by China, from my understanding. I'm not really a political guy, and since this has come into the sports world, I felt compelled to talk about it. It's just why I don't think that they should have been. I don't think they should be as heavily on the damage control press run that they are on. But they're scared, like you said, of losing 500 million total viewers of the NBA that they had last season. And they had 3.5 million more viewers than America on Game 6 of last year's finals. They had about 23 million. They have no vested. I mean, they had one vested interest because the Warriors are the most popular in China, most popular team in China. But other than that, it's an American game.
But yeah, it's such a weird situation. But it's significant too that like you said, that the Rockets are the team specifically that's involved in this controversy, because Yao Ming is the commissioner of the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association over there, and obviously he's a Rocket legend. And now China is going to be not streaming Rockets games over there anymore. And it's just, there's so many angles to this that we could literally spend a whole entire hour pod discussing, but it's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, like it's definitely unfortunate because now the NBA, like most businesses, you finally, of course, a business is about the money first and foremost, but it's nice that they've created a layer of intimacy and compassion with its employees and its fans, because they don't stress the money factor as much in America. But with China, because it's such a big market, it's bigger a market than the U.S., although the NBA is based there. They establish it by players they allow players to speak upon what they want to speak upon. And with the fans, it's a very millennial league. They talk about social issues very often, mental health, all this type of stuff is nuanced into the league to help gain more light, because athletes do get looked upon to speak. Although that's not their job description, that's what is going on. And with this happening, it's funny, because China controls what its people can see. So now, like you said, Rockets games are banned in China. China doesn't use Twitter.
Oh yeah, they have to pay for a lot of services over there, to just because the government says they have to.
They use an app called Weibo, which I'm sure is controlled by the government, and what you can see, what you can't see, and all the above that is controlled on the internet. So they allow the citizens of the country to think one way. Of course, it's not as similar, but what you see on your phone and TV, like, we're manipulated by it to think about the world as one way, and then what our neighborhood is. But we don't know everything and how it affects everybody. It's similar, just times 10. It's a socialist government, which despite saying socialism, it's not the most inclusive and not the most free-ranging of having free rights, which is why I would think Daryl Morey tweeted that, which was then later deleted. Of course, they don't remember it. I think that's so funny when people delete a tweet. We're not going to remember it. China is not going to remember that. Of course they will. It's just a very sticky situation.
Yeah, and what it comes down to is the NBA's overall response to this whole situation comes off as them being, I guess, for lack of a better term, money hungry, as far as they don't want to lose a very lucrative business in favor of supporting human rights. That's the view that a lot of people share overall when it comes to this whole situation.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to probably something the NBA doesn't really like discussing that much because they fumbled this as well. The tampering rules. The fine for legitimate tampering goes from $5 million to $10 million. Do I think that's going to affect anything? No, not at all. Because tampering is going to happen. These guys talk to each other. Not in the same way of Jerry West is going to call Draymond Green up to his office or Giannis up to his office or just try and talk to each other. Players talk to each other. It just happens within the league. It's not really stoppable. It's kind of like organized crime.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to go full FBI on them and wire every single player during the offseason to try to catch someone tampering? There's no way to prevent it. People talk. What are you going to say, that players can't talk to each other anymore? It's ridiculous. You can't prevent it. It's impreventable. And like you said, a $5 to $10 million, like a $10 million fine, that's not going to stop somebody from trying to lock down a deal.
Especially owners.
Yeah, I mean, owners are swimming in money. I mean, $10 million to them is just like paying a parking ticket.
And it's not an individual fine because I believe an owner would think twice about it if it was $10 million of his money. But it's not. It's the team's money, which can be funneled in different ways, and it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I understand that you're trying to tamper down on players influencing other players to force trades and stuff like that, but you can't stop it. You literally cannot stop this kind of thing.
Yeah, some more deals is that some more parts of the new tampering rules is that random audits will occur, so that can help. I don't know how random they will be, but maybe more of the organized crime or organized tampering will be more in closed doors. You know. What else?
Mandatory reporting. I'm reading this out right now. There's an obligation that teams report within 24 hours any demand by a player's representative for impermissible benefits.
Yeah, I read that earlier.
Which I get that. And then every year top team officials have to certify in writing that they did not engage in tampering or engage in impermissible communications with free agents or their representatives, and that the contracts they sign satisfy all applicable league requirements, which is a little bogus to me. That they have to sign off that they didn't tamper.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that part because I was thinking about when I read that too. They could easily just lie about that as long as they covered it up.
Oh, so that's the easiest thing to lie about. Did you tamper? No, I did not tamper.
No, Your Honor, I did not.
And then also the other thing, team executives have to retain all communications with players and their representatives for 1 year.
Which also, if you know about they all know about these rules now. Now you don't have to speak through email or through text or social media. You will just call the people now and be like, "Hey, can we meet up?" And then after that, you're not gonna know what they said. At least I think. Unless they got your phones tapped. Yeah,
I understand what they're trying to do, but they're fighting a fight that they're just not going to win. You're not going to be able to stop tampering in the league, period.
Yeah, I've thought tampering has been bullshit since I've questioned tampering when it all happened in free agency, when it all happened all at one time. And it was a problem after it happened. But I think damn well that these Adam Silver and everyone in the NBA commissioner office are smart enough guys to know that this stuff did happen. But now that I think it's just the perception of it happening so under your nose and it just hits you in the face that now they have to do something about it because of teams that aren't likable destinations, places people or players don't want to go. They're trying to pass it off as making the competitive balance closer competitive edge in teams closer. Like the Hornets have a way less chance of competing even with the Miami Heat, who are mediocre, have been for a couple years now, but it's Miami. They have pedigree and history, and Pat Riley. It's just different. It's a different edge. I think they're adopting it from baseball. Had this problem for a while too. They still kind of do. It's just now you have to draft better.
Yeah, and they're trying to. It's a direct response to to player empowerment. They're trying to limit how much power players have over influencing where other guys go. It's so obvious, and to me, I mean, it's you should have your players' interests first and foremost, and to say that, and it's bogus. I lost my train of thought there, but you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it is a direct response to everything that everyone watched unwind on Twitter. It's basically what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure that amount of news and swapping of players and teams doesn't happen again. I feel like it's such a flood. It's like a dam broke down, and all this happened all at once. At least this past summer.
Oh yeah, and if these rules were in place this past summer, I mean, literally every team in the NBA would have been fined. So, so are you really going to fine every single team in the NBA for tampering? I mean, it just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, for what reason? What do you get out of that besides enforcing the rules?
Nothing. You get nothing out of it.
Yeah, I think, and it's funny because it's one of the things that makes the league attractive is that a player can manipulate something to move somewhere else. Player empowerment and all the movement is fun. Do I necessarily always like it? No, but a lot of your base people my age, in my age group, 18 to 35, all like the amount of movement and unpredictability now that this past summer has proven the NBA can be, because a lot of the hate towards the NBA is that it's predictable. Now we're in the first year in however long that it's not predictable, which helps you. And these tampering rules that you're trying to enforce could stop what just happened and creating the intrigue that is this season. So it's just it's a double-edged sword for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, player empowerment, player movement, it makes the game so exciting. Isn't that what you want? You want to put out a good product that's exciting and people are going to tune in for and show up at games and, and bring more attention to your league. Isn't that what it's all about? Instead of trying to suppress all of that, it's dumb. It's just dumb.
Let's move on. Let's move on to D'Angelo Russell and his transition with the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors did play a preseason game. What was that? Friday night, right, against the Lakers?
Yes.
Yeah, where Anthony Davis showed out in the first preseason game. LeBron was diving for loose balls, and Steph Curry airballed his first three in the Chase Center. But besides all that, I wanted to talk more about D'Angelo Russell. I'm not going to talk about the performance of each of those guys in that game. But with Russell, I'm more worried about the team's defense with his addition because they also lost people. Clay's out until at least February. KD's gone. Andre Iguodala's gone. There's not a lot of great defenders on that team anymore. And that's something that worries me, and something that Steph and D'Angelo Russell have to know to step up. They have to play better on-ball defense and off-ball defense to have that team be successful. What do you think?
Yeah, so, obviously D'Angelo Russell's pretty much going to be stepping into Clay's spot in the lineup, which, like you said, he's not going to be able to replace Clay's defense. Clay is probably one of the most underrated defenders in the entire league, which makes him one of the best two-way guys in the league. And, he averaged 1.2 steals per game last year, but I don't know if he's not going to bring that same kind of defense that Klay brought. And just overall, you're not going to be able to replace the production of Klay Thompson at all. But on the offensive end, I feel like they're going to make out better than most people think. Obviously, Steph is going to be getting the majority of the touches. He's going to be the focal point of the offense. I honestly think that Steph is the favorite to win MVP this year. I know a lot of people share that opinion. I expect him to put up huge numbers this year. But as far as D'Angelo Russell goes, he's coming from a situation in Brooklyn where he was the primary playmaker and the primary go-to guy that they had. He averaged 11.4 pick and rolls per game, which was second most in the entire league. And he produced at a relatively pretty good clip, maybe not as efficient as you would like, but he still produced. But I think him coming into pretty much what's going to be a secondary playmaking role for him, I think it shouldn't be too bad. So and as far as spot-up opportunity goes, he shot 42% on spot-up opportunities, and he was ranked in the 82nd percentile in that respect. He hit 39% of his catch-and-shoot threes, and he hit 35% of his pull-up threes. So, just being that shooting option that Steph could have right next to him, along with the playmaking that he can bring with his experience in the pick and roll, you could hypothetically run him in those high pick and rolls that they love to run with Draymond. And I think that D'Lo might actually not be a terrible fit right next to Steph.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not questioning the fit next to Steph because Steph can operate without the ball more than D'Angelo Russell can. Obviously, we learned that because he became an all-star last year in Brooklyn, where he had a 31.9 usage rate, which was 6th in the NBA. Now, with someone like Steph Curry, this was from a Bleacher Report article published in December 2018. He shot 48.1% from three on 10.4 attempts, and 32% of those were created by Steph. So that's 3/10 of it created by Steph. So a bunch of other ones were either spot up or him curling on the screen, which means he doesn't need the ball. My concern is defensively. How are they going to step up their game, as well as Steve Kerr and the rest of the Warriors try and hide them as much as possible?
That's the thing. Steph isn't that terrible of a defender when he's guarding guards necessarily. He's not terrible. He can hold his own against them. Obviously, if he gets mismatched, then he's going to be exposed a little bit. But I guess when you're going up against a team, you put D'Lo on, I guess, the worst guard. I don't know, but I like you said, they're definitely going to take a step down from defense with Klay's absence. But I think that their offense should be able to pretty much ride them throughout the rest of the season. But their defense is definitely going to be taking a hit.
It's interesting because the team is largely unproven. Like, the projected starting lineup is D'Angelo Russell, Steph Curry, Alfonso McKinney, right? Is it Alfonso or Alonzo?
Alfonso, yeah.
Alfonso, I thought I was right. Draymond Green, Willie Cauley-Stein. Now, much different from last year. And much more offense going on them. And the three guys after Curry and Russell have to provide on defense as much as possible. It's an unknown that we've seen with the Warriors. I'm looking forward to it, and maybe they do know that they have to step up on defense, and it will raise their game. I think it could happen.
Yeah.
I don't think, obviously it could happen because it's a possibility, but is it likely? I don't think we're gonna find out until January. Maybe I don't know. I don't see it happening to start off the season. I see the offense being much more ahead of the defense in the beginning of the season.
And offense has always been their MO. They've always been a really, really good defensive team. It's not the thing. I don't know if it's necessarily the thing that's won them championships, but they're obviously going to be riding on Steph on the offensive end throughout the majority of this season. And I think that the defense will hold up It's not going to be elite, but I think it'll be fine enough. Draymond is obviously still an elite defender. Willie Cauley-Stein inside isn't a terrible rim protector, but I think that they'll tread water for a good majority of the season until Clay gets back, and we'll see how Clay is, because you don't know how Clay is going to hold up when he first comes back.
That's true. That is the unknown. I am banking on Clay to come back pretty strong. I think it's going to take a couple weeks to see it, but when it does happen, I think you're going to be reminded, yeah, that's Klay Thompson, and we know exactly what he's going to do and the level he will play at.
Yeah, and I think he'll be fine. He just needs to just keep shooting the ball, and then he'll be fine.
All right, now
go
ahead.
Oh, no, that was it. Yeah.
You lost your thought again?
No. I was done.
All right. Yeah, let's get into half-court hitters. How scared should players and rims be of LeBron with a chip on his shoulder?
I think they should be more afraid of a fully rested LeBron. He hasn't had a somewhat full offseason in like 9 years, really since 2010. And I feel like he's gonna have he's obviously gonna put up his 26-5. He put up 26-5-5 in a down year. What's he gonna put up when he finally has AD by his side? I don't know if he's gonna have an MVP type season, but he's still gonna have another typical dominant LeBron season.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have an MVP type season because of the fact, as you mentioned, health, playing with an elite player next to him for the first time in a while, and just having the amount of time he did the rest and motivate himself to be who he knows he can be, basically. Now.
Yeah, I agree.
Will the Lakers push for Kyle Kuzma to come back too soon? Kyle Kuzma is out with a stress fracture in his foot. He's out indefinitely. Do you think they might worry about him coming back because of the chemistry pertaining to the big three that the Lakers have?
No need to rush him. It's early in the season. They'll be fine without him. Obviously, you have LeBron and AD. You don't have a whole lot to worry about right there.
Yeah, nothing really to worry about, but it's something because he's hurt and he had kind of a down year last year. So him starting the season hurt is not a great thing to have as the Lakers. Is Pascal Siakam worth a max contract?
Yes. Toronto has made it clear that he's going to be their franchise cornerstone going forward. He's going to be the focal point of the team for the foreseeable future. And when you label a guy as your franchise cornerstone, that typically means that you're going to give him max money. And honestly, they really don't have a choice because Serge Ibaka's contract is expiring. They did add another year onto Kyle Lowry, but there's always that chance, depending on how the season goes, that he could be dealt. And if you subtract those two guys, all you have is Siakam. And you got to have something to build for the future. And if he's going to be the guy that they build around going forward, you have to pay him.
Yeah, I want to disagree because we've agreed on the first two questions so far. But I will say that he needs to show the same productivity for this season to be worth the max contract to me. He did it last year with an elite player next to him. Now when he is the guy, I want him to show that he is the guy and worth that contract. Now, will Michael Porter Jr. be a legitimate contributor this season on the Denver Nuggets?
If he's fully healthy, I'm really high on him. The wing was one of Denver's few weaknesses this past year. They're obviously flush with a bunch of guards, and the front court is something that they lack. They picked up Jeremy Grant this summer, which was a pretty big addition on defense, and just as another serviceable wing in general. But if Michael Porter can prove to be productive, and he stays healthy, he could be another upgrade on already a very, very good Denver team. He can shoot, he can create for himself, and if he can defend, he could be a stud going forward.
As of right now, it leans towards no for me, just because of the competition he has to deal with in fighting for minutes. You mentioned Jeremy Grant, also Will Barton, Juan Honcho Hernan Gomez. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Torrey Craig. He has competition, unlike that he's had before, probably in a position for himself. So I feel like this one will take time. As of right now, I don't see it just because of how deep Denver is. But he could wind up outplaying guys. But as of right now, I don't think so.
I think he will. I think he's gonna be a stud if he can live up to the hype and potential that he had going into the draft last year.
And final half-court hitter segment, or half-court hitter question: will Lonzo Ball be a competent shooter this season?
Define competent.
Averaging the NBA 3-point percentage, 35%.
I think he'll be just under it, but it's hard to get worse than he's been the last couple of years. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think he will be. It seems like, he changed his form for one, and it seems like he's really taken the mentorship that JJ Redick is giving him very seriously and providing it in his game. So I think with more free reign in New Orleans, with the energy that they're playing with, I think that he will be a good 3-point shooter this season. That's how I feel. I know the shot was broken at one time, and you don't like his dad, and you don't like all these type of things. You don't like his little brother, his two little brothers, but in terms of shooting, I think Lonzo can turn it around.
Yeah, it's you'd really have to try to get as bad as he was those first 2 years. But I don't know how much he's actually going to be shooting this year. But if he can be competent and shoot around 33%, I think that's a win for him.
Yeah, definitely a win for him. Real quick, I was thinking about this because last week's episode was called Markelle Fultz might be Johnny Flynn. Just proposing it. And I was a proponent in the Markelle Fultz cheering section, basically. I was supporting him because I liked him as a player. But I was just proposing the idea that he might be a guard NBA bust. And now I'm watching every good highlight of Markelle Fultz after I posted that episode. I'm like, damn, I might be wrong. I might be wrong. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting fooled once again. You think I'm getting fooled?
No, I refuse to fall for that trap. I hope that he becomes a successful NBA player. I really does. I will always believe in that kid. But I will never fall in that trap ever again.
Wait, fall in the trap of not believing in him?
Well, no. Just the trap of you seeing every good highlight on Twitter and then immediately thinking, oh, he's back. I'm not falling into that trap again. We've done it once or twice before. I'm not doing it again.
So I should stand tall with my might be Johnny Flynn case.
As harsh as it sounds, yes.
Yeah, because he can be. Just because of the uncertainty of his injury. Which I barely still know what it is.
No one knows what it is. We're probably never going to know what it was.
That's fair. Well, Joey, thank you for joining the show. It's always great talking to you. Give the people your socials one more time and where they can find you.
Thank you, brother. Always appreciate you having me on. Yeah, again, you can follow me on @JoeyD_6, capital J, capital D. And if you're on Instagram and you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @JoeyD_6 as well, minus the capitals. And as always, go follow and holla at my boy, Justin. He always puts out some pretty solid content. So definitely go check him out per usual.
Now, you can follow me @_JDiVirgilio on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the podcast @The Outlet Pass Podcast on Instagram, @Pass_podcast on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, The Outlet Pass Podcast. Rate it 5 stars, subscribe, review, Tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, share, repost. All that good stuff. If I said some dope shit, tell me. If I said some whack shit, tell me. This has been the Outlet Pass Podcast. The ball being our opinions, and we're passing it out to you. Peace.